There was the traditional military ceremony, resplendent displays, pomp and fanfare, but this year's celebrations were markedly different. For starters, no Robert Mugabe for the first time in the country's history. And where the former leader would have used the platform to attack perceived foes, the atmosphere here was inclusive, with the opposition in rare attendance.
In unity, peace and harmony, guided by the love of our country and informed by a desire to build a better tomorrow, we are rekindling the pride in being Zimbabwean.
38 years of self-rule haven't been without their challenges.
Mistakes have been made, opportunities have been missed. In recent years, progress has not been as smooth as we would have liked.
To address this, the new administration is planning on investment-led economic recovery, job creation, effective social service delivery, and respect for the rule of law. Mnangagwa hailed the goodwill of international states, in particular China, with which Zimbabwe has recently rekindled deals in various sectors.
Significant too is the convergence stemming out of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which resonates with our vision for greater global trade, embedded in our own heritage dating back to the Mwakutuya Empire. This convergence offers us a window of unlimited opportunities as we grow and develop our economy.
This flame is lit every year as a reenactment of what happened in 1980 when Zimbabwe became an independent nation. But this year, perhaps more than any other, it truly symbolizes the hope and promise that this country had back then, as well as the bright future that many here hope now awaits it.
That's why these cheers were not just for another passing year, but for a real opportunity for this country to be great again. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And Farai Mwakutuya now joins us live from Harare tonight with more data on this story. So Farai, let's start with the President's speech. He spoke about a new investment law being drafted from scratch. What will this bill aim to do, and when should we expect it on the floor of Parliament?
Well, Rama, that piece of legislation is likely to formalize some of the reforms and the pronouncements to attract investment that we've heard from this new administration. If you remember, back in January, President Mnangagwa unveiled investment guidelines that basically spell out, the need to protect and encourage private investment, to the need to protect and encourage international investment, to encourage the participation of locals through joint ventures, through employment creation, through skills and technology transfers, the need for Zimbabwe to finalize and wrap up things such as this land reform program and allow investors to come in knowing that there is, a finality to these issues, that there is clarity in terms of the policies, and that going forward, Zimbabwe will respect property rights and the rule of law. In terms of when we expect this to be debated, the tenure of the current parliament is almost up. If elections are due in July, as we've heard, parliament must be dissolved 3 months, 90 days to that date, so it doesn't leave them much time. However, I think given the rate at which these reforms are being pushed through, the need to accelerate them, the fact that they're likely to be accepted across the political divide, we're likely to see them brought forward very quickly, debated very shortly in the very near future, and passed without much division or any resistance, Rama.
Indeed. So the President also didn't speak about the state's decision to fire, I believe it was about 16,000 nurses today. But give us a sense of how wide the unrest and the angst in the civil servants is over working conditions and unpaid allowances. What effect is this having on the delivery of public services?
Well, Rama, no specific mention of those dismissed nurses, but the President did allude to the need to improve the conditions of service of public servants as well as their remuneration. I can tell you that nurses currently, doctors before them, and even teachers are unhappy and are talking about the need for some allowances that are outstanding, for their pay to be increased and for their conditions of service to be improved, not just so that they can deliver their, discharge their duties effectively, but that they can also do it safely and effectively. The President has acknowledged that we need to enhance and improve service delivery, social service delivery, to ensure that it is efficient. In order to do that, I think you need a very happy and satisfied civil service doing that. And so it's crucial that that is done. But at the current moment, the civil servants aren't very happy. But the challenge is that the government is cash-strapped. It doesn't have the funds to be able to meet, some of their demands. And so until some of the measures that are proposed in this investment bill come to pass, until we start to see the results of this re-engagement, coming to fruition, there isn't much that government can do. So at the moment, their hands are tied, and perhaps some of these demands cannot be realistically met in the short term.
Indeed. So that actually ties in neatly with my next question for you, Farai, because tax collections for the first quarter, they're up nearly 30% compared to the same period last year. Are we looking at a one-off gain here, or should we expect similar performance for the rest of the year, particularly given the change in government?
Well, Rama, I think it's certainly not a one-off, and it's important to look at it in the context of a revenue collection agency, a revenue authority here that has been undertaking a lot of changes. It's been improving its systems. It's been tightening up its systems. It's been improving its efficiency in terms of revenue collection. So there's been a concerted and deliberate effort in order to improve efficiency, to follow up people who've been slipping through the nets in terms of revenue collection, to go back and look back at some revenues that may perhaps have been missed out in the past. So there has been a consistent performance in terms of achieving targets and surpassing them. We expect that this will continue given those improvements, perhaps not to the level of 30%, which is quite significant, but certainly we expect that that overperformance and the achievement of targets will continue, especially now as if this investment that is being touted, that is being called for and invited comes through, that will widen the revenue base, that will increase the tax base, and hopefully see more revenues coming through. Rama.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for the update. That's Farai, of course, our point man in Harare, Zimbabwe.